The name's Rex. But you'll call me Captain or Sir.
War does not come with a guarantee. No soldier gets the promise of safety.
My designation is Trooper 27-5555, sir.
We call him Fives.
I'm Heavy.
This is Echo. I'm Commander Cody, your new boss.
Sir, yes, sir!
Looks like we got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander.
Look around. We're one and the same. Same heart, same blood. Your training is in your blood. And my blood's boiling for a fight.
This is our home. This is our war.
This can't be good.
We need to pull back. Get them to follow us. If we can draw them out, we can see them. If we can see them, we can hit them.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Republic Outpost Radio, brought to you by MediaByte. This is of course our Star Wars weekly podcast, and per usual I am your host Sean Hussey, and joining me as always is my co-host Nathan Hicks. What's going on, Nate?
What's up, man?
What's up? So we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to dive into some of our favorite Star Wars video games. We know this is a popular thing amongst a lot of Star Wars fans. There are a lot of Star Wars video games, especially back from during the early 2000s. There were just a ton. Before we begin, we wanted to set the record straight that we are not going to be talking about Knights of the Old Republic or The Force Unleashed in this podcast episode. We think that both of those series deserve their own kind of special episodes, as well as Battlefront. We're going to talk a little bit about Battlefront, but we might circle back on another episode to talk about Battlefront, just because there's so much to go on with Battlefront there. But we're going to talk a lot about some of the smaller video games we used to play, some of the ones we still play, things that we really enjoy about them. We're not going to hit everything. We might not get to your favorite hidden Star Wars video game ever, but I figured we're going to cover some of the major ones. So Nate, this is a little bit more of your forte, so why don't we start off with you, and what's the first game you want to talk about?
Yeah, the first game I want to talk about is Star Wars Dark Forces. Came out in '95. It's it's one that I like to throw on and play every now and again when I'm kind of bored. Because it's literally like a Doom clone. You know, you don't really aim up and down. You just kind of left and right. You strafe around and shoot stormtroopers. It's a lot of fun. The very first you play as Kyle Katarn, who we're probably going to bring up later on in some other games. He was a pretty big character in what is now Legends. But yeah, the very first mission, you're tasked with stealing the Death Star plans to give to Princess Leia, which I thought was pretty cool. Kind of funny now, considering, Rogue One is the new canon, but this was an explanation of that back in the day, and then the missions are all kind of parallel, I guess you could say, to the movies, the original trilogy, but yeah, Dark Forces is fun, especially if you're a fan of old, like Doom from back in the day. It's the same thing. But yeah, great game. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah, so Nate and I, turns out, mostly because of our age gap difference, have very different tastes in Star Wars video games. So we're not going to kind of be discussing a lot of these in depth together. We're going to kind of just touch on ones that we really like. So my first one that I wanted to touch on is the Lego Star Wars games, which we could probably also do a whole episode on. They're just great. Totally something that I grew up with. The original one, which I recently found out released prior to Revenge of the Sith. So like you could play the whole plot in Lego Star Wars of Revenge of the Sith before seeing the movie, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then, of course, Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, and then they went on and did the complete saga, the Clone Wars, the Force Awakens got a game, and now just announced at E3 last week, they're doing the complete Skywalker saga, in a Lego Star Wars video game. So I'm looking forward to getting that. Ultimately, I think what just makes this game really compelling and fun for fans of all ages is the ability and humor that you get out of a Lego game, while also creating good gameplay content. I haven't played The Force Awakens. I think that was the only one I've never played. But the other ones didn't have voice actors. Typical for Lego games, they're not doing voice actors for the Skywalker Saga game either. But just the ability to use grunts and little voice sort of sound effects to create a whole scene, as well as just use really funny Lego comedy moments, really just make these games shine. And there's something that I think a lot of people can enjoy of all ages, and something that I go back and play all the time as a nostalgia trip.
Yeah,
Nate, what's next?
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love the Lego games. They're fun, and the Lego games, they're the only type of game that I can get my wife to play with me. So it's easy to get into and play, and yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Absolutely. What's next on your list?
Star Wars Obi-Wan came out in 2001. This was one of the first Star Wars games that I actually remember putting a lot of time into. Mostly with the multiplayer mode. Me and the boys would get together on one of the Xboxes in the neighborhood, and we would 1v1 or 2v1 Jedi fights. We really had a lot of fun because you had you could use your force jump and force run, you sprint real fast, and then you swing your lightsaber with the analog stick, so you're just flicking the analog stick left and right, and you're just swiping everyone. A lot of good times with that one, and I want to say there was I might be misremembering, but I think there was a code or something you could put in to unlock another character, which was either Yoda or Darth Sidious or something like that. But I just remember not playing the campaign hardly at all. But I remember spending a lot of time dueling my buddies. I got to play as Plo Koon, who's probably my favorite Jedi Master from the prequel trilogy. So I always really enjoyed that. And fun fact, I believe Plo Koon actually has his yellow lightsaber in the game as well, which was changed from early on. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was a fun game too. It's not one you see hardly at all anymore. But yeah, that's really all I got on that one.
No, yeah, I definitely gotta love all those prequel characters in those prequel games. Just especially Plo Koon with that yellow lightsaber is really cool. Next on my list, I figured we could talk a little bit about Star Wars Galaxies. This is one that I have very faint memories of. But it was this online MMO subscription-based Star Wars game that ultimately didn't last that long. It just didn't end up working out for them. But it was actually at its core one of the best Star Wars games. You got to choose what faction you wanted to be a part of, and you went out, and it was just this big MMO in the Star Wars universe. I remember seeing a lot of ads for it on the old Star Wars video game, inside box covers and stuff. A lot of people have called for it to come back. I think that a lot of people would like it to be revised into almost a Star Wars Skyrim kind of game, where you can go around to all these locations and do different things within the Star Wars universe. I think that that's something that fans are really excited and interested in seeing, but not something that I remember all that fondly, but I know that fans really love that one, and it was something that I do remember playing as a kid. So bring back Star Wars Galaxies, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't love a Star Wars game that played like World of Warcraft or something? Just that level of big, and just the MMO aspect of it, just being able to be a bounty hunter and buy a ship and have clanmates be part of your crew. The whole idea of a new Star Wars MMO that big, how Star Wars Galaxies was, I just think that's the best idea. I don't know why it's not been done yet.
face the reason why. Oh, God. Anyway, on to your next game, Nate.
Yeah, so let's talk about Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. I played this game a bit, but I didn't really get to dive into it too much. Like, back in the day, man, I didn't own a whole lot of games. My buddies owned more games, so I would get to play a little bit here and there. But I do remember picking this up like way down the line. It was actually fairly hard to find. I picked it up probably, let's see, it came out in 2003. I picked it up probably like 2010 or 11. And it was actually fairly difficult to find the original Jedi Academy, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. I just remember, like, create your own character. Kyle Katarn comes back, you know, he's with Luke, and you're, you know, learning to be a Jedi. And I think you get attacked by like a Sith or something, and you go on this crazy mission, and cool stuff happens. I was playing this one a few months back, and then I got stuck on a part, and I kind of hadn't gone back to it yet to beat it. So I really need to hop back and finish this game. I played a little bit of the second one, which was Jedi Outcast, and I believe in that one you just play as Kyle Katarn pretty much the whole time. I don't remember a whole lot of that story, but yeah, the Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, like those games, the Jedi Knight games were really good.
Yeah, I think I've played a little bit of Jedi Outcast. There was this like PC deal back in the day where you could get like the original Battlefront, Knights of the Old Republic, and Jedi Knight 2, and like one disc. And that was like a really cool combo, and like how I remember playing a lot of my Star Wars games as a kid.
Nice.
Shout out to anybody if they remember what that is. But no, yeah, I didn't play a ton of Jedi Outcast or Jedi Knight, but I've heard good things, especially from you. And I do have some faint memories of playing that. This wouldn't be a Star Wars video game discussion if we didn't talk about Republic Commando, which, other than Battlefront, I don't know. Like, this has a soft spot in my heart. I have never beaten this game, but like as a kid, I was really into this game. And just was not good at PC games, so I didn't know how to play it. But I just love the whole squadron idea and what they did with this. It was just such a cool concept with all the planets. The campaign was really good, and I've read up on it, and I've seen some gameplay, and it's something I revisit every now and again. The gameplay was really good, just the ability to switch between the different ops and kind of command them. Put people in sniper positions, get your troops to med up, get grenader positions. And these characters have now since been transferred into canon, and we haven't gotten a ton of information on the main four. We did see Republic Commando Gregor in the Clone Wars, and we did get a quick peek at the main Delta Squad in the Clone Wars as well, but we haven't ever kind of gotten to see those characters fleshed out. It's something I'm definitely interested in seeing in the future. But Republic Commando is just one of the best. Gotta love it.
I can't believe I haven't played this game yet. I've had it in my collection for 4 years now, and just never. I mean, it's been installed for like 4 years now, and I just never went and played it. I had no idea it was like a tactical, like, you know, first-person shooter. So that's.
Oh yeah, you'll die if you don't.
Yeah, that's like right down my
tactically
alley.
Shoot. Yeah, like I used to try to go in guns blazing, and I would die because I didn't understand the game mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably enjoy this way more than XCOM, so I should definitely play this soon. The graphics look pretty good too for 2005. It almost looks like a Halo game.
It kind of gives you that vibe. It's just one of those stories. Like, you start out on Geonosis, and then I think you go up to a Star Destroyer, or not a Star Destroyer, but, you know, like a Republic cruiser.
Yeah.
And then you end up on Kashyyyk. I know I'm missing a planet in between, but it's like got 4 main locations with a bunch of missions that kind of play out simultaneously as you go through with the squad. It's a good one. You should try that one. You have it, don't you? You just
Yeah,
haven't played it.
it's been installed for like 4 years. I don't know why I haven't tried it out yet, but yeah, I've definitely got it.
All right, what's next on your list?
I want to do a little shout out. Now, it's a game that I own on my Nintendo 64, but I never actually got to play it. But I know this was a big game for a lot of my friends. And that's
all your fans.
all my fans.
All your fans.
My friends. The Star Wars Pod Racer game.
Ah.
I don't know if you played that, but I
have not, but I have heard many good things.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the more fun parts of the Phantom Menace. Definitely an enjoyable part, and then they made a whole game on that. I can't believe I never played it. I think I had a buddy give it to me because I have a 64, but I don't have any controllers for it, so I don't even know if it'll still do anything. I need to get a controller somewhere. But yeah, I never got to play it, but comes highly rated. If anyone listening to this has played the crap out of it and wants to let us know how awesome it is, please do.
I think they remastered. Well, like a fan remastered this recently.
Really?
I feel like I heard something about like a fan remaster version of this game.
I just know it's not on my Steam list, and I've got like 27 Star Wars games on here. So
yeah, I don't have it either. It wasn't included in that bundle.
I mean, I got like
Steam has a bundle,
Starfighter and X-Wing Alliance and stuff, but I don't have those installed. I've never tried them. I mean, they look like fun, but
the X-Wing Alliance games I've heard really good things about too.
Yeah.
But those are just really bad quality, and I know they're old, so like I shouldn't be mad, but I've heard good things about those as well.
Yeah. TIE Fighter games, there's some good ones.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to hit before we kind of dive into the meat of this, which is of course Battlefront?
I think I'm ready to dive into some Battlefront.
Awesome. So, I mean, obviously, when it comes to Star Wars video games, like Knights of the Old Republic's really up there, but I think for the mass audience, Battlefront is like the biggest Star Wars video game. We can talk about so you've played all of them except the classic Battlefront 2?
I played a little bit of the classic Battlefront 2, but I played a little bit of classic Battlefront. Didn't get to play classic Battlefront 2 until like just a couple years ago, and I didn't really get too far into it because we couldn't ever get multiplayer to work.
Right.
So mostly what I know about Battlefront is from EA's Battlefront, which honestly really sucks.
So we'll get back to that one, but I'm going to start with the early Battlefronts because those were a big part of my childhood as well. I have to say, I'm a little more of a fan of the original Battlefront than Battlefront 2. And we're talking the old ones here. I just liked the gunplay and the maps a little bit more on the original Battlefront. Although Battlefront 2 added in the Jedi characters and a bunch of other stuff like space stuff. And there's just a lot more you could do in Battlefront 2. And not to say that Battlefront 2 isn't amazing. There's just so much that they've added to that game from Battlefront 1 that was just really good. But no, they're just really classic first-person shooters, third-person shooters. I think you can swap in and out. And they're just really fun Star Wars. Like, I can gush about the new ones too, which we'll get into. But there's just something really classic and original about those original ones. Particularly the maps. They're just... the maps are so cool. Like, Battlefront 2, at least, I remember, has, like, Molus Pasa, which is the asteroid that Luke and Leia are born on. Megiddo, Felucia, a lot of prequel maps. Whereas the original Battlefront had a lot of, like, Cloud City and Endor. Battlefront 2 had Jabba's Palace. There's just a lot of different maps. And you could kind of see where the lines were drawn. The original Battlefront was way more original trilogy based. I don't even think they had clones in the original one. And then Battlefront 2 was really heavily on the prequels with some mix of the original trilogy. But since you haven't played a lot of those, we should probably talk about the new Battlefronts, like really in depth. So let's start with Battlefront 1, or the new Battlefront 1,
Right,
I guess.
yeah.
So when it was revealed that EA was redoing Battlefront, people were really excited to see what they were going to come up with. Ultimately, fans found themselves really disappointed with just a lack of content all around and a star card system that people just were not really happy with.
I'm still not happy with it. Come
Well,
on.
yeah, but we'll get into that. I mean, no one can complain about the graphics. The characters were cool. There was not enough prequel content. There was no prequel content, honestly. And it was just something that looked really cool on the surface, but didn't end up being all that great. And so that left a lot of fans disappointed. Why don't we talk a little bit back and forth and just a little bit about our experiences with the first Battlefront, and we'll kind of dive more heavily into Battlefront 2.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty excited for when I found out that this was coming out, mainly because, everyone talked about how great the original Battlefront 2 were. And so I was like, oh, cool, EA Dice is going to do it. I was a big fan of the Battlefield series. So I was like, oh, cool, we're going to get basically Battlefield but Star Wars. And, this is going to be awesome. And then, the more information that came out, space battles, star card system, all this little stuff started coming out. And I was like, that doesn't sound very fun. And it came out, and I really wanted to get it. I watched a few streams, and I would have loved to have gotten it, but money was tight, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this game, in a week. And I mean, sure enough, the game pretty much died after a couple weeks, and I picked it up for $10 about 3 years later. Played the crap out of it when I picked it up, but by then everyone had jetpacks and stuff, and it was just kind of pointless. But I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it for the $10 I spent, that's for sure. But I do know that it was nothing like the old Battlefronts, and I think the old Battlefronts still have a thriving community. So probably better to get back in on those if possible.
Yeah, I mean, I still like the first Battlefront from EA. I think that the maps were cool, and as I said, the graphics were really something else.
Yeah.
And they still look good. And that's something that no one will ever complain about these new Battlefront games, is they look phenomenal. It really feels like you're in Star Wars. The gameplay was fine for what it was. The star cards were really messed up. And it just didn't feel quite like the classic Battlefront. But it's hard to replicate that. They did what they had to do with it. And ultimately, EA probably should have went and made their own game, like they are now with Fallen Order. But looking back on it, it was a smart move. They made a ton of money off those games because people really liked Battlefront and they liked that name and that property. So they just made a ton of money off of those. So I can't really blame them for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to talk about Battlefront 1 without talking about Battlefront 2. We could start kind of shifting over. So they announced they would be doing a sequel to Battlefront 2, this time incorporating both the sequel and prequel eras to kind of span all three trilogies. They announced they would have a campaign as well, which I really would like to dive into. There's just so much going on in that campaign.
Yeah.
And they said they would kind of fix the star card system. And then, of course, there was the whole pay-to-win scandal that occurred where there were just too many loot boxes, and EA basically had to put a big shutdown on the game, reset the whole thing from the inside out, and basically the game plays completely differently than it does now. And I would say, reevaluating the game now, it plays better. Not the best, but it's still a decent game. But it's never really lived up to its true potential.
Yeah, I mean,
what are your overall thoughts on Battlefront 2?
I actually really enjoyed Battlefront 2. I didn't even touch the campaign until last week, to be honest with you. I just mainly, played the multiplayer, and I really enjoy it. Some things are, kind of can be a bit obnoxious. Star cards still really confuse me. I have no idea how they work, but generally I can just drop in and shoot shit. And that's really all I want to do when I play Battlefront anyways. I want to see the cool maps. I want to fight in the big battles that, I saw in the movies. And that's what I get to do. So I really don't have a whole lot of complaints about Battlefront 2. It looks great. I mean, I really enjoy it, but I was pretty surprised with the campaign. Kind of kicking myself that I haven't played it sooner. And that I haven't finished it yet. I think I'm only like 4 missions in.
Oh,
but
you got a ways to go.
I got a ways to go, but like, holy crap! Like, because I'm trying to think the part that I'm at. I just did the mission where I basically like, I basically betrayed the Empire. Like, holy crap, dude! Like, honestly, I kind of didn't see that coming because I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to what, like, I knew the story was like you play a stormtrooper. And I was like, oh, that's cool, like, awesome. I get to play on the Empire side. I didn't realize, like, you betray them that early on. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I'm excited to see, like, where it goes. Get a real, like, effing 2187 moment there for a little bit. But I'm really excited to continue playing the campaign. I'm going to try to beat it. I probably won't have enough time next week, but the week after, I'm definitely going to try to beat that and put in some more time on the multiplayer.
So, sorry, we're going to talk spoilers.
That's fine. I mean, the game's
Just
been out for
because
like 7 years.
I thought you had played these. So, like, so no, the Battlefront 2 campaign, while extremely short, is really cool. The content you get, not only lore-wise, but gameplay-wise, is really great. Obviously, we get our first introductions to Project Cinder, which was the Emperor's contingency plan in the event of his death, which is still being played out in Star Wars canon today.
Which is so freaking cool.
Oh, yeah, it's great. You have Project Cinder has again, or Operation Cinder, has been mentioned again in the most recent Alphabet Squadron book, which I'm not sure if it's out yet. It might be out now. It, like, just came out. So that's referenced in there as well. I think it's referenced slightly in the Aftermath trilogy as well. So you've got a lot going on with all of that. We also have things where we get the, there's a stage with Luke Skywalker. Spoilers, Nate. Sorry, you're gonna really love that scene. You're gonna really love that mission, though.
Oh yeah.
And you kind of see that Luke's going around looking for these relics in Palpatine's like vaults on all these different planets. And of course, you see that Luke picks up this compass at the one we see in the Battlefront mission. That compass later appears in The Last Jedi, which is a great tie-in connection for fans who really pay attention to all aspects of canon. And of course, we also get the Battle of Jakku in the Battlefront 2 campaign, and we get to see that now infamous battle from another perspective. We're still learning things about the Battle of Jakku. I assume we're going to learn even more about it in Episode 9. There's just so much going on with Jakku and what that has to do with the Rebellion, the New Republic, the Empire, the First Order, Palpatine, Snoke, even Rey, maybe. I don't know. I just think that there was some convenience factor there. Also, this is now airing on Friday, so there's a cool article on the MediaByte about Rey. Peep that. Anyway. No, and then there's the DLC expansion for Battlefront 2, which takes place just prior to The Last Jedi, where Iden and her daughter go on a mission. And I won't spoil the ending for that, Nate, because I don't need to spoil the ending. But essentially, Iden and her daughter deliver the schematics to the TIE or the Dreadnought, which we see at the beginning of The Last Jedi, which is what allows Poe Dameron to take out its weapon systems, and then ultimately the Resistance to use their bombers to take out that Dreadnought. That's a direct result of Iden Versio and her daughter retrieving those schematics. So there's a lot of great tie-ins, lots of little lore segments that you get from that campaign. Probably more that I'm missing. Inferno Squadron just recently got a little Lego set too, so if you're into that, you can go pick that up. That's not an ad, it's just a little bump for Lego, I guess. But no, really cool campaign, really cool story. I love the character of Iden Versio. I love Janita Gavankar, who plays Iden Versio. I'm really glad her and Sam Witwer are very close, so they're like Star Wars video game buddies now. And she's been a really great positive light in the Star Wars community as well. So there's just a lot to love about that Battlefront 2 campaign. Obviously, I think everyone wishes it was a little bit longer, but that's something that you kind of just have to deal with and understand that the game wasn't meant to be built on its campaign. And we're going to get that, hopefully, with Jedi Fallen Order as a full, no multiplayer campaign game moving forward. So any last thoughts on the campaign, Nate, before we kind of switch over to multiplayer?
Man, I'm still kicking myself that I haven't beat the campaign yet. Like there's so much that's still, connecting to this game in the movies. I can't believe I haven't done it yet.
So yeah, we could talk a little bit about the multiplayer.
Sure.
Let's try not to. We'll avoid the whole star card scandal and the loot boxes, but just kind of looking at it from as we play now. They add stuff all the time. They add new characters, new skins, new game modes. Capital Supremacy just came out, which is a really cool game mode where you fight on the ground in order to control command posts. And then once you control a certain amount, you load up your troops and you board the enemy ship in the atmosphere of the planet. And then you have to destroy the ship from the inside, and then you win. But if you don't capture the ship, you have to go back down to the surface and recontest for those command posts. So they could be really long games if you have two teams that are really good, or if you're really effective, you can just get it done in one sweep. But they've added things since, like the ARC Troopers, Commando Droids, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Count Dooku, General Grievous, plenty of skins for the original trilogy characters. We get new skins for new movies. I expect a couple Rise of Skywalker skins, which is super exciting as well. So there's a lot to love about the multiplayer. For me, it's just kind of this fun action shooter thing. It's not really anything too special other than just me loving Star Wars and me loving to play these types of games. But what about you, Nate? You said you really like the multiplayer on this one, so feel free to talk about that.
Well, I want to talk about Ewok Hunt, man.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about Ewok Hunt.
It is so fun. Like it seems silly. Like you're a stormtrooper on Endor at night, and the Ewoks are coming. Like, how can that be terrifying? Honestly, nothing about that sounds scary. But then you drop in, and you just got your flashlight, and everyone else you're dropping in with, they're all spread out. You got to meet up with everyone, and you got Ewoks. You can hear them scuttling around in the trees, panicking. You're like meeting up with your buddies, trying to get back to back, like hold little spots, and then like the Ewoks are just coming out of nowhere. You got freaking, you're shooting at leaves moving. Dude, butt clenching sometimes. Like, that game mode gets so stressful for me sometimes. Like, especially because your fellow stormtroopers drop. Like, they join the Ewok side. And so you just get whittled down slowly. Man, that game mode is super intense, and I love it. I love it. It's so much fun. So much fun hearing your buddies scream.
Yeah, it's a really interesting type of thing that they were able to introduce. It's just a kind of different genre for the game, which I really like. As you said, on the surface, it seems really silly, but you kind of play it and you kind of realize this is really terrifying. Actually, if you're kind of playing it in the dark and you're a stormtrooper, even if you're an Ewok, it's really fun that you're kind of hunting around these stormtroopers.
Yeah.
It's something different. I hope they bring it back again. We could talk too. I love the starfighter combat. It's probably my favorite part of the game.
It feels really good.
It's really clean. It's really good gameplay. The objectives are good. No matter what era you're playing in, you feel really important to the battle, which I really love. There's just so much to love about each and one of these, and of course, everybody's got a complaint for a compliment. And I do have a lot of complaints about the game, but honestly, at this point, it's just something that I love to play. It's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. And that's kind of it for Battlefront 2, I guess.
Well,
Anything else you want to hit on?
We got one more thing. We got one more thing. What's that heroes and villains mode?
That's true.
Yeah, you get the duel, which I found playing. I think I played with you. We figured out in the 3v3, 2 lightsaber users and someone with a blaster like Han Solo is usually the best combo to go.
Yeah.
But that mode, man, that mode's fun. Running around with Darth Maul and like Rey and like Han Solo, trying to beat up like Sidious and Bosk, and like it's just, I mean, it's silly, but like that mode can get crazy sometimes. The duels get pretty intense. Especially like you got like Yoda on one side, man. Jeez. But yeah, that I enjoy that quite a bit. It feels more competitive than, in my opinion, if that mode feels the most competitive out of all like the multiplayer modes in the whole game. But yeah, that's definitely a lot of fun too, cause like the thing is like when you're playing like all the other modes. Like, yeah, you can unlock, you can build up, I guess, enough points and unlock, like, you can run around as Vader on the battlefield and, like, just mow people down. Like, that's cool, but, like, what I like with that heroes and villains mode, I mean, you're essentially, like, you're dueling each other. And, the lightsaber on lightsaber combat can be really fun and really hectic. So I think that mode's really, really cool. And it's you get a little bit of a different flavor playing with Vader, going up against Sidious or Han Solo or whoever, versus like mowing down a ton of faceless stormtroopers or rebels. So
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, but that's one of the last things I wanted to touch on with Battlefront 2. It is fun. Like I said earlier, I can hop on at any time and just go shoot stuff, and sometimes that's all I need.
No, yeah, absolutely. We do have a little bit of time left. We're kind of running a little short today. Any other games that you think we missed? I could talk a little bit about Empire at War. I don't know if you've ever played that one.
I've got it. I haven't got to try it yet, and I've heard a lot of good things. I'm kind of itching to play this one too. I'm not going to have any time to play all these games.
Yeah, this is one that I played as a kid that I just did not understand, because it's like a real-time strategy, I think.
Yeah.
So like you're kind of picking targets and taking turns, and this is just not something that I could fathom or understand as like a 5-year-old.
Right.
But it was a really cool game. It's something that I would like to reevaluate and look back at. I've heard really good things about them, or at least this one. There's a sequel too, but that one was not as good, I heard. We're really.
It's looking like. I mean, I was looking at the Steam page for it, and it looks like. I mean, even as recent as last November. There's still like remake mods and stuff coming out for this game to make it look better and play better. So there's probably a lot of good quality stuff going on in this game. if people are still like making mods and stuff for it. So definitely might be worth checking out pretty soon.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I think people would want to look at again. It's something that still has an active fan base, I know, and it's just one of those classic ones that people really love. Other than that, Nate, I know we're running a little short, but I think that's everything we've got. We didn't want to dive into KOTOR or The Force Unleashed today, just because both of us wanted to kind of play through those a little bit more before we talked about them at length.
Yes.
But other than that, I think we're good. Do you want to just kind of wrap everything up?
Yeah. I mean, fact of the matter is, there's a lot of good Star Wars games out there. Even the bad ones really aren't that bad when you consider like when they came out. So, yeah, I mean, definitely, if you can, keep your eye out for the Star Wars Humble Bundle, which comes around pretty much once a year, sometimes twice a year, you can pick up a lot of great Star Wars games for super dirt cheap, and you'll get a lot of good playtime out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wrap up per usual. Thank you guys for listening, as always. And I just like to keep sending out the reminder. We are still looking for questions for a Q&A segment as more viewers come. Obviously, that segment will grow a little bit more. But please don't be afraid to leave a comment, ask us a question, leave a like as well. And even tweet at us, #Republic Outpost Radio. We do check to see if anybody is sending us questions in. So make sure to keep a hold of that. Other than that, guys, make sure you're following us at the MediaByte. We now have Facebook. We also have Twitter, Instagram, and of course, you're here on our YouTube channel. If you liked the podcast, consider hitting subscribe and checking out our other podcast as well, the ABNC show, which covers more comic book news. Also, the MediaByte.com, our website. We post daily editorials. I'm kind of the only one that posts Star Wars stuff, but every Thursday you can find a new Star Wars article from me. And if you like other stuff in the pop culture genre, if you like video games, we just did a Dark Souls piece as well. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check those out as well. As for me personally, you can find me on Twitter at the Real Sean Hussey, or just Real Sean Hussey. Links to that will be in the description as well. And Nate, where can the fellow Force users find you online?
Twitter at the Drunken Dragon. I think there's some numbers in that. I don't remember.
Links in the description.
Yeah, and then soon on Twitch. We're working on getting that done and up and running. So yeah.
Absolutely. And that'll do it for this episode, guys. Again, thank you so much for listening. And as always, may the Force be with you.